And now we've got a special guest on the Artist Alley segment. His name is Jacob Michael Campbell, and he has this strip that's on Instagram, and he's got a Kickstarter for number 2. He's already done number 1. He's got a Kickstarter live that's live right now for number 2 of his comic called Toe and So Long. So I'm going to bring Joseph on right now, and here he is. Oh, Jacob, I'm sorry. Jesus.
No, it's funny. Joseph was my father's name, so close enough. Joseph Campbell, writing a lot about like story and mythos and stuff like that. So very different. But thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming on. All right. So tell us a little bit about your strip, Toe and So Long.
So Toe and So Long is something I was working on from, I think, maybe like 2018, and finally released the first issue at the beginning of this year. So it's been a grind to get that first issue developed and out. It's actually my first comic book, but I'm fairly proud of it. The response has been good. It's basically a buddy portal fiction where these two characters sort of roam what's called the endless plane of doors, and they go to infinite situations, and you're kind of joining them towards the end of it, where they've, the trope is these characters in these adventures where they go to like world of the week. It's, you start out and then they find the portals and then they start going through them. Here we kind of catch up with them towards the end of it, and we're kind of dissecting the genre and kind of looking into indecision and a lot of different themes that I think are important for kids. This is supposed to be readable for kids, but I want it to be maybe secretly heady enough for adults to tap into as well. So it's been great. We're about 67% of the way there on this Kickstarter. Last Kickstarter, we did well. So raised over $1,000, and just really proud of this project so far. And the response has been really great.
Man, that's awesome. The link is in the chat, and the link is also down in the description below. And that's so interesting that that concept, man. I don't know if anyone else has had this, probably, but I have dreams where I go through doors and there's like another door, there's another room, and there's another door. What was the inspiration? I should say, I can't speak for you.
Sure. Well, portal fiction, this sort of idea of exploring different portals to different realities, is a thing that's been on my mind, from watching things like Bee and Puppy Cat and even Nightmare Before Christmas. This has gotten called out for Monsters, Inc. Some people have called it out. Some people have been like, you're taking directly from this. But I think it's, doors that go places. It's a pretty open concept, so I can explore different ideas. It's something to latch onto while I take you on a completely different idea. It's a completely different tangent with the writing. Yeah.
Yeah, those people should just chill, man, because every concept has been done before. It's just a question of how this creator is going to approach that concept, and, how they're going to make you, fall in love with the characters or just accept the world that they built.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting to introduce people to a completely new IP. Actually, just today, 2 videos have been posted onto YouTube giving critiques to the first issue of Toe and So Long. And it's been interesting to hear their takes on the characters and their first impressions, and it's been, first impressions are just so important with characters. And I'm getting across in some ways, but I'm also noticing that this isn't necessarily what your average comic book reader is used to. And I know you guys probably know that comic book readers tend to niche in and kind of grab onto certain ideas. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, it's very clicky. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in the mainstream universe of comics, but indies too, but especially the mainstream, I say.
Yeah. So, you want to show it to as many people as possible, but in doing that, you're going to show it to people who maybe it's not for, and that's just an interesting thing to kind of navigate and get input. And you kind of got to read between the lines with the input. And so I'm essentially a new comic book artist. I created the idea, did the character designs, did the layouts. I pass it off to an illustrator for inking pencils and inks, essentially. And then they turn it back over to me for the color. So
Oh,
You know,
okay.
this is my first sort of full project, and I just want to soak in whatever I can, but read between the lines to make sure I'm hitting my vision.
Yeah, so you answered my question. I was going to say, are you the artist and writer? But you just answered that question. Okay, very, very thoroughly. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
blended.
yeah, awesome. Awesome. It's great to have collaborators like that. I want to ask
The actual, I'll stop. I just want to make it clear that on the new issue number 2, we've got a different artist than on issue number 1. So it's going to have, it was unfortunate to lose an artist, obviously, but the new relationship is great, and they're tapping into it in their own way. So now I've already seen my idea sort of manifested by 2 different people, and that's been a trip as well.
I know, man. That's great. Man, your idea has come to life, and that's pretty awesome. By 2 different artists. That makes it even nicer. What did you read comics growing up?
So, not to say I'm of the same caliber as Todd McFarlane, but I share a few different things with Todd McFarlane. Firstly, my background is in graphic design. So I've come from a lot of like branding and layouts and things of that nature, which people seem to notice in the comic book, and that's good. I'm very independently minded, and I didn't really tap into comic books so much as a kid. And I think it really had to do with value. You know, I didn't have a lot of spare money lying around when I was a kid. We were a pretty poor family. So video games and just cable anime were where I was getting most of my, you know, it's kind of secondhand comics mythos in a lot of ways, right? Especially with anime coming from manga. So,
sure.
But it was kind of outpricing me. And then I'm also left-handed. So a few different similarities to Todd McFarlane there, but comic books just provided me such an interesting way to tap into storytelling at kind of a nice price point, to put it brutally. Like, I want to tell these bigger stories. I want to illustrate these worlds. I want to do world building, you know, and all of that takes money at different mediums, and comic books just seem like the most feasible way to do it.
That makes sense, because if I wanted to create a property, I would probably start in comics, because you can get that off the ground a lot easier than you could like an animated vehicle or pitching to some company who's going to make a series or something about that subject, about that story that you're doing. So yeah, I think comics are where a lot of the ideas clearly are coming from, for television, you know, for movies, for all kinds of content. Video games is a whole different thing.
Yeah, video games, but they often come from TV series and IPs that are already existing. That maybe went away for a bit and then came back with the kind of waves in the market. But I also wanted to say that, you know, it's just really important to, I've heard Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane talk about, you know, continuing to make comics and continuing to make these series, and they're really just doing R&D. It seems like comics are where the R&D is still happening for intellectual property. And that, you know, I'd love to shop around my idea, obviously, but the comic book medium has been really fun to learn, and I've grown kind of a love for it in a very specific way. You know, I picked up things like collections of Crazy Cat. You guys familiar with Crazy Cat?
Oh, yeah. Ignatz and Crazy Cats from,
yes, of course.
Way back in the day. Yeah,
and that was very early on in developing Toe and So Long. And that really kind of initiated a comics learning journey that unfortunately recently ended, you know, with cartoonist kayfabe and watching a lot of that. So that was sort of a masterclass in comics, and I feel much more connected to the medium right now.
Yeah, that was a pretty deep comic, that Ignatz and Crazy Cats thing, man. I mean, it seems like basic, throws brick, hits cat in the head, and cat stays in love. But there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Somebody wants to look that up. That's kind of a intense strip. It looks simple, but there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, and I take a lot of the prose from that. Like, I love poetry in comic books and the way they talk. And I also really love Leiji Matsumoto. I don't know if you guys are familiar, Yamato, Captain Hardluck. I actually go by Captain Hardluck in chat.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I was trying to figure out
that now. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
right.
yeah, and there's Hardluck over there, and I actually run the world's largest Leiji Matsumoto fan project as well. So maybe we could talk about that at some point. But yeah, Leiji-verse, which is also on YouTube and Facebook. Get my plugs in there. But I've grown a lot more attached to comic books in the last few years. Let's put it that way. I've tried to make it so I know what I'm doing as best as I can.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you seem to have some knowledge of manga and anime, right? So what's your favorite manga or anime?
Yeah, I've really niched down with Matsumoto, so that's where most of my expertise is. Obviously, I have a big love of Matsumoto. My first anime by him was Galaxy Express 39, and we have such a small taste of his manga here that I hesitate to say I have a favorite of his because I know there's so much more to be read. But as far as anime, when I was growing up, I mean, kind of the big space westerns, Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, and Outlaw Star. Absolutely three. And those spaceships. And then, if you look at the Outlaw Star spaceship and you look at Captain Hardluck's spaceship, you kind of get to know my taste. So,
yeah, man, I'm almost embarrassed when I say Cowboy Bebop because that's the only thing I really know in manga. Oh no, show me in anime. I know a few others, but it's like saying, "Oh God, you like Batman or something." It's like the most well-known, but it's such a great series. Yeah. But
as far as comics go, Batman's probably it for me. Like Batman is where I am with DC and Marvel. Everyone else, I'm like, I can take it or leave it. So.
Yeah, that's a good choice, though. I mean, I love Batman. But Cowboy Bebop, man, I thought that was it's just like when I saw Enter the Dragon as my first martial arts movie. I thought they were all like that. Like, this is great. Like, they're not quite the same as this.
Other people have budgets and limitations.
Yes. And it was like Corey Tran, who does a book called Sokyo. I've reviewed him a couple of times. He suggested I pick up this book. I don't know if you ever heard of it, called Monster. It's a manga.
And it's Urasawa.
I want to say yes.
Yeah, he just did Pluto. Have you guys watched Pluto yet on Netflix?
Oh, it's on Netflix? Okay.
Yeah, Astro Boy sort of reimagined as Silence of the Lambs, and I believe Monster has a Silence of the Lambs feel to it too. So Urasawa's great. He's got a TV show that's not been properly localized, but you can, kind of use YouTube translation, and some of them have been subbed. But it's called Monben. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Monben, but it's basically Urasawa talking to these legends of manga and like video footage of them actually drawing. It's super addictive if you want to watch people draw amazingly.
Oh, that's awesome. And I was such a fan of Astro Boy as a kid. I was the creator. It was in black and white, and I used to get up every Sunday morning. It would be on like some UHF station, like UHF kids. It's an extinct form of television. I would watch
Tezuka and Matsumoto, very good friends.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, Matsumoto, one of his first gigs was doing some contract work for Tezuka. So, some manga history here. I'll try to help out and make good.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure. Yes, was that Chris? Oh yeah, I mean, I totally feel you with the too poor to have the books. I think Chris Gibson is along with us because when I was growing up, they were like 15 cents and 12 cents, and I still didn't have a lot of money to buy comics. So imagine how poor we were. So I can imagine.
I never bought new comics. I bought the 25-cent comics.
Did you?
At the used book.
Oh, okay.
And there, I think it was like an aesthetic thing for me too, because like I said, Marvel and DC, other than Batman, something about Batman is primal for me. But everyone else, there's something about the aesthetic. I always gravitated more towards anime and manga, which was decidedly more expensive than DC Marvel comic books in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. I assume that they were like a little bit cheaper, but I guess I'm not right on that. Maybe now the price has gone down, or
right? They're
Well-
better quality books, aren't they?
Well, generally they were black and white, right? So
Mhm.
different printing expectations there.
True. Yeah, I only own one book, so I can't really say how they go. Yeah.
There weren't a lot of 25-cent anime. Like there was a Manga, there was Ben Dunn drawing, Ninja High School or, all sorts of adaptations. There was like Tenchi Muyo comic books drawn by American artists and stuff like that. Like there's a Captain Hardluck one. I interviewed Ben Dunn on my Liagiverse channel a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys know Ben Dunn, but he's a great guest. And he did a Captain Hardluck comic book for Eternity Comics back around 89, I think. And it was actually, they thought they bought the rights. Malibu Comics bought the rights, but they bought a pirated license for a space pirate comic book animes. Anyways, I could rant about
that sucks.
all day, but yeah, it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Back to your story, your comic, Toe and So Long. You plan on doing any Comic Cons or any kind of things like that to promote it?
I would love to do more. I would love to tour with cons and things things like that. Right now, it's just not feasible to go out to a lot of different cons. I don't have the right automobile to put all my stuff in and tour the country. Also don't know what I do with my studio here. It might be tough. Sometimes you do think about selling everything and roaming the country, but right now I want to make a comic book.
Bueller.
Do that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
So Kickstarter's been, a huge boon, and Instagram's been a huge boon for the series. And right now that's what I'm doing. Maybe do some local things with local comic book stores, but nothing official as of right now. I'd absolutely love to have a table because I got some nerd stuff to sell too. I'd have a great table. Liagiverse, random nerd buy stuff, and then Toe and So Long stuck in there. It would be like a curio shop at the con. I'd love doing something like that.
For sure. That may be the better business model right now. I'm thinking I did the whole con thing when I was living in the Midwest. And, it was fun. I met people, made a few sales, but you pay like these huge table fees and you're trying to break even by selling your books that cost a lot to print, so that'd be kind of an outdated model for young people or people just breaking into comic book making. Kickstarter is the way to go, man. Or if you can do the critical entertainment method that they did, they just built up their whole inventory and then approached Diamond. But not everyone can do that. But Kickstarter, is Indiegogo still a thing, or is that still not around anymore? Maybe not.
As long as they're letting me on Kickstarter, I'll be there. If I go to Indiegogo, we'll see. There's a lot. There's so many of them now. It's
Kickstarter is the CGC of fundraisers, I want to say. So
I got to learn something. I'm going to go on Bing.com. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's probably the best way what you're doing right now. But I was just curious about the where are you located, by the way?
Currently, I'm in Utah, coming from Oklahoma, coming from Western Pennsylvania. I've been kind of moving all over the country for work and doing that kind of design work that I was talking about before. But right now, I'm really focused on the comic book and a lot of the other creative things that I do. I live stream. I draw some of the comic, and then I do the Liagiverse thing, and I'd love to do more, it'd be interesting to do cons because I'd like to do more vendor stuff. I like buying and selling, books and DVDs and things like that. So I'm slowly getting into that. And, you got to have a lot of different streams of income, basically.
You do.
If you're going to be doing this kind of thing. So
you have a lot of different arrows in the quiver, so to speak, So, yeah, you got that that graphic design thing down. That's great because you know how to make the page look good. That's something a lot of people don't get, even if you're an illustrator. So yeah, that's really cool that you can do that.
Design is king, definitely, in my opinion. So, and again, like I said, that's where McFarlane comes from. When I'm building my pages and doing my layouts, I'm doing some, rudimentary, crude figure work. And as I build my figures, I'm looking at circle placement, and I want to hit these law of thirds and these Fibonacci sequences and half.
Oh my God.
Flow.
Yeah. That's stuff I need to work on. Yeah, that's tough stuff. Yeah.
That's like the first part for me. It's the more I'm breaking things down into shapes and layouts, the better for me. The minutia ends up getting a bit headachy. It can get out of hand too, especially as I'm coloring. That's the thing that gets out of hand. I'm like, I put way too many figures on this page. I need to chill out,
Yeah. But man, you got it covered. So tell us where we can see your stuff other than your Kickstarter. You got YouTube and Instagram. And what else do you have?
Yep, YouTube, Instagram, toeandsolong.com. And then that's where you can find me at all those socials. CPT Hardluck, that's where you can find me on YouTube and Twitch. Liagiverse, I will put in the chat at some point here. But that's all over the internet too. I'm the top video when you look up Leiji Matsumoto on YouTube right now. Fingers crossed that's still the case if you're watching this stuff. Yeah, and I did want to say, like, Toe So Long, the comic, the story that I'm building here, so inspired by like manga, shonen manga storytelling, dropping people into fantastic worlds and giving them entertaining, curious characters, giving them lots of mystery and giving them lots of answers all the time, just constantly. That was your favorite part of Dragon Ball Z or One Piece or whatever you were watching growing up. What did it ended off, and you were satisfied because you found out why they do something and you don't understand another. And I want to give people lots of mysteries here. So if you go into issue 1 of Toe So Long, be prepared for mysteries and unraveling and curious adventure. I don't want you to think that this is going to be slow or plodding or gritty, or it's none of those things. It's light, but I want you to be able to have that light surface, so maybe you'll look a bit deeper and maybe you solve some mysteries on your own.
Hey, well, we're all ready for that mystery and all that adventure. So Toe So Long, folks. The link is in the chat. The link is down below in the description. Thank you so much for coming on, Jacob. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And I just want to say, as soon as you guys are done live streaming, I'm actually going to start live streaming, and those videos that were put out today reviewing my comic book, I'm actually going to respond to them and see if I can take the criticism, because I want to start, because I want to communicate what the comic's about. And I think responding to people's concerns might actually give people a much better idea. So if you guys don't mind, I'll put my Twitch in the chat, and
please, absolutely.
I will be live. So thank you so much, Lorenzo and Marcus. You guys do a great show here. And I wish we could have talked more about AI and all sorts of silly things like you were talking about at the beginning.
Dirty traitor. Can we talk about democracy?
We can make AI work for us. Damn it. It's going to be our bitch. It's going to be our slave. Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, y'all.
Have a great one.